We're back. We're looking at QQQ. So this is just looking at the top 100 stocks as an index fund. This one's very similar to VOO, which is the top 500, where it looks like we checked this one about a month ago, and the price was 294 whenever we last looked. So that was somewhere in this range, somewhere around here. So it looks like it fluctuated. Uh, we could have caught this at about 287. Even at that point, I probably would have or waited a little bit longer to see if it pulled back. Uh, and then recently, like I don't know why it popped the way it did. Like the only good news that I know of last week was strictly around the semiconductor industry. I don't know why that would have such a drastic pull on the market as a whole outside of, out of the top 100, maybe. I'm sure Nvidia's in the top 100. Maybe AMD is in the top 100. I'm kind of on the fence with that one. Um, that's real. Maybe Intel's in the top 100. Uh, I really only think one, maybe two, at most three would be in the top 100, and I'd be surprised if it was all three. I really think it might be only one or two max. Uh, that said, I know, like, I guess Apple would be involved in the semiconductors, Tesla, there's a lot of tech companies in the top 100, but yeah, I guess I'm not familiar with what was so great last week to make it pop like this. Again, outside of the semiconductors, and this is not the semiconductors. This is the top 100. So I'm not really sure what was going on here last week. That said, it's near this blue line, which again, that is like our fair value line for this company, and that's more so based on it kind of maxing out there on a number of weeks dating back to about May of last year. There was a roughly about a month where it did exceed that, and that kind of is why we put in that red line as like a sell point. But outside of that, 305 is like where we think this one will kind of stutter. We'll of course see how it plays out in the weeks to come, but I imagine that's kind of why it stopped there. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I think it could go. I think what's more likely to occur is maybe next week, it might poke above just a little bit, and I think it's going to get rejected and fall back, hopefully close to this green line so that we can actually pick up shares of this. But right now, I'm probably just going to hold off on this. We'll see how it plays out. And then, of course, the alternative is, hey, maybe we'll get an instance like this where it does climb up into like the mid 300s. It's possible we could get a rally like that, and then it might get rejected, and maybe it'll bounce between the sell point and the fair value point. That is uh, a scenario that could play out. I think what's more likely again would be it might come close or slightly above this fair value line marked at about 305, and or actually the fair value is around 306 to be specific, and I think it'll get rejected and pull back, uh, maybe not necessarily to 277. So I think that is a point of interest that it might not pull below that. I think what we will do, just to kind of see how this plays out, but this is kind of a short term thing. Maybe we are in an uptrend right now. This purple line is very. Uh, I didn't really do anything fancy here. From this low back in December, it seems to be hitting that mark. So maybe a buy point would be if we can catch it close to 287. Um, I think if it were to touch that point or maybe go below, maybe I'd pull the trigger at that point as opposed to waiting for it to come back closer to 277. So uh, that's something I will keep in mind because again, I'm just at the point where I'd rather accumulate things. I still, even though a lot of things are starting to rally upwards these days, I still think overall, and especially compared to the highs that most things experienced back in like November or December of 21, I think we still have strong discounts on many of those stocks and indexes. So I just need to keep that in mind that a lot of things, even though they might not seem like they're on this great deal, when we compare it to like 6 months ago, if we look at it from like a year and a half ago, it's still on a good deal. So we just need to have that type of mentality as we look in these. Um, but yeah, so let's just update my tracker here on. It's not on the screen, but I'll share it in a minute. So right now, it's at about 305, and a buy point. I guess the buy point for me would be maybe around like 290. I'm gonna say is I'd probably pull the trigger there. So we won't give it a color at this point, but uh, I think what I'll do is let me just share it real quick so we can see. So I think what I'm going to do here is just add a slight uptrend. That way we can keep that just in the back of my mind when we circle back to this one and just kind of see how it plays out. And yeah, I realize I guess I don't need to write that considering I drew in the purple line, but just for reference, that way I could just pull up the spreadsheet and kind of get an idea of what's going on there. Um, Maybe what I'll do is I'm not sure how this would look if I drew in. What if I said 277, something like that? I don't know if this makes sense, but if I put in the two price points, and we'll just put that off to the right, and I'll mark that one pink, I guess, only because purple's too dark of a color on this one, so we'll just make that pink so it stands out. But that's how I'm seeing this one. By all means, let me know what you think in the comments. Um, and if you have any idea of what kind of made it pop last week like this, I guess again, the other thing I could think of is the Fed bailing out the banks. I'm not sure how much weight that would cause because I know earlier I looked at the financial sector and that was still tanking. So I'm not I guess the financial sector's tanking because yeah, there's closures there, but the Fed's coming in to bail out the customers of the bank, and so that pushes them back up. That's really all I can think of for that. But um, yeah, we'll see how this one plays out. So the new price point for me would be 290. If it pulls back to 290 and it kind of keeps this uptrend intact, that might be a point where I'd look at it, and if it can break this purple line, we'll see if it can come back to our buy point of 277. So we'll just kind of, this one's on notice. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple weeks. But again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.